My date of birth is the 1st of April 1948 and I grew up in Cricklewood, northwest London.
My date of birth is the 5th of August 1946 and I grew up in the heart of the East End, Brick Lane. In 1969 I was club leader of the miners section at the Brady Boys Club, and each year the club had an annual summer holiday, a camp, summer in England. I went down in 1969 to lead the miners section. There was about 45 boys for the holiday, which is about 10 days. And that year the camp was held in 2 farmers' fields in a place called Charmouth in Dorset, just near Lyme Regis. And during the camp, a number of additional helpers came to support the Brady management, and one of those helpers was Jenny.
I finished college and I had very little money, didn't know what I was going to do for the summer, and I signed up to do 2 camps actually. One was at Stepney Jewish and one was for Brady.
The miners section was in the secondary field. The main field held the junior and senior camp. I believe we had approximately 200 people sleeping under canvas at the camp, so it was a very large camp. And of course when the miners went to sleep at night and after the juniors and seniors had gone to bed, the managers got together in a tent and had a drink and socialised before they went to bed. And it was whilst we were at one of those evenings that Jenny and I met. We had a meal and we sat together and so on, and when we came back I called her up and asked her to come out and have a meal with me, and that's how our relationship started.
History.
We met in August 1969, which was the camp. We got engaged in January 1971 and we had our engagement party at Brady Club in the original hall and in the canteen. And we had, I think, about 120 odd people turn up. We were very lucky they gave us permission to hold our engagement party at the club. That was January 71. We bought our first house in February 71 before we were married. And we got married on the 5th of September 1971. We're celebrating 52 years this September of married life, so and it all started at Brady.
It did. I became as a manager. Was it called a manager? And I went to a PE college and I actually took a netball team at the club at least once a week, and we had matches and that continued for quite some time. You just were lured into it in the most wonderful way, because you went through the doors and the outside world just didn't really exist. It was just a completely different environment. You had girls that were really, I suppose, quite challenging at school, and they just, because it was their choice to come to Brady, they just were, well, just different girls. It was just like a family, wasn't it? It was just your life. I know it sounds silly. It was just, Brady was Brady. It's just the people. I don't know how else to explain it, because you just wanted to be there. You just wanted, even if you were just sitting in the canteen. So many of those people there are still our very, very good friends.
After the age of 19, you cannot be a member of the club. So after 19, I became a manager and I worked with the miners. When the miners leader left to go back to Israel, where he came from, I was asked, I applied to take over the role as miners leader So for 2 or 3 years, I ran the minors section of the Brady Club. Jenny, when we met in 1969, then came every single week to the club, and she took over running the netball. We also took the senior weekends down at Skeet. Seniors had weekends maybe 3 or 4 times a year. The biggest weekend was Christmas, because that was 5 days. And all the seniors who had wanted to get away for Christmas came down to Skeet. And Jenny and I frequently ran the whole weekend down at Skeet with other volunteer managers. We ran the programme, we organised the food, and we organised all the 45 kids who came down to join in the Christmas weekend.
There was a group of us that did that.
Yeah. So when I was 29, I think was the time that we started to withdraw from being manager, because we now had a family at home and we had other responsibilities.
Yeah.
We later on got together with our other friends and started doing the family weekends to take our kids
To
back
Skeet.
to Skeet to enjoy it.
When we all used to meet, we always used to talk about Skeet and Brady, and I mean, obviously that was the common denominator, but we often just talked about, oh, do you remember when we did this, and do you remember that, and then I don't know who thought of it, but we said, well, why don't we do this for our children? It was quite a few years later, because we started going when our youngest Ruth was 8.
So that would have been 1985.
And we just started talking about it and thought, why don't we do it?
You could hire Skeet, even though we weren't part of Brady at the time. We could hire it if we wanted to, as long as we paid the appropriate money. So I found out who was in charge of Skeet, and he turned out to be our ex-football manager. So worked out the numbers, needed to get some more, so some of their friends who maybe weren't Brady people, but the nucleus was Brady people. And then we went down and we had our first weekend, and it was such a raving success that for the next 6 years, twice a year, we took over Skeet and took all our children to do all the stupid things that we did as members and managers.
Our children brought their friends with them as well, and they just absolutely loved it. I was a teacher then, and we used to do it twice a year. So we did it, I can't remember when it was, but we used to do always the Maybank holidays, so that was 3 times a year. So not only was the Skeet wonderful, the group of us who used to organise it, we used to have meetings beforehand of what we were going to do at Skeet, and they themselves were fantastic meetings.
Well, we just laughed.
Oh gosh, we laughed. We used to take, I think, 4, our 2 daughters and 2 of their friends, and it might have been even more at the back of our car, but we used to, 5 minutes after we left home, we used to stop off to get chips on the way. And we used to stop the car, door open, we all flew into the chip shop, got the chips and came back again. But the one thing that we've just been recently talking about it was one time we stopped the car, everyone flew out of the shop, and we flew straight into the Chinese restaurant that was next door, not the chip shop. And I mean, it will only sound so funny for us, but we came out of that shop just laughing so much. And then the anticipation of Skeet as we drove up. Do you remember the trees that used to, it was like going through a tunnel, you know? We used to drive, and when we were about 5-10 minutes near Skeet, we drove through, the trees were just kind of interconnecting. As I said, the light was fantastic, and you could sense the children, couldn't you? Getting just so excited. There was kind of a silent excitement.
We used to go on a Friday night.
We did.
And we used to get to Skeet, because trying to get out of London on a Friday night is horrendous. And we have to go through Blackwall Tunnel, or rather a tunnel, to cross the water to get to Skeet. We used to get there 7 o'clock-ish. The kids would get out of the car.
And that was it, they'd gone.
We, as parents, we never saw our kids until We got back in the car Sunday afternoon to come home. Every other adult was just as responsible for
That's
my
right.
kids.
Everyone was everyone's parents.
Everybody was a parent. Everybody's responsible. Everybody made sure the kids were okay. But we never were there as the mum and dad. They just went off. And each room, the boys were on one floor, girls were on another floor, adults were on the top floor. And the adults had as much fun as the kids. In fact, more fun than the kids. We used to absolutely adore it.
Do you remember?
We had prayers Friday night just before
I can't even remember that.
We ate. We had supper on Friday night, and then normally on Friday night
we had initiation ceremonies.
Initiation games for those kids and adults as well who've never been before.
You couldn't sit out and say, well, I'm going to watch this. But it was just such a laugh. The weeks beforehand was just so great. The initiation ceremonies was, we had things like, I can't remember what it was called, when they had to put a blindfold on and they had to put their finger into a tomato or something. Was it? Yeah. What was that? Someone's eye.
Loads of games.
It was just, it was
all stupid games on Friday night.
So funny.
Saturday morning we had breakfast, and if it was the May one, hopefully the weather's nice. And on Saturday morning we would have what we called the Brady Olympics. So we would, it's a very big site, Ski, and there was a farm next door, and there's rollers and bits of old farm machinery, and there's planks and wood and everything else. So me and a couple of other dads will go out beforehand, and we would set up an assault course and different games, split all the kids up into teams, and we'd have a Brady Olympics for 2 hours in the morning. And it was just amazing.
We did night games. There was one night game where we were going to go to Lullingstone Park. One of the adults, he said, do you know what? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to climb up a tree, and I'm going to wait for people, and I'm going to scare them. As they come, I'm just going to scare them. So he said, yeah, great idea, go on, you go. Anyhow, so he went, say, 3/4 of an hour before we were going to go, and within that 3/4 of an hour, for whatever reason, we decided we weren't going to go. So fine, whatever, we did something else. And every night, one of the girls, Jenny, used to make hot chocolate before we went to sleep. So we're sitting there having the hot chocolate, and suddenly someone said, oh my goodness, where is, I can't even remember his name, he was still stuck up a tree.
One of the games was a team is put outside to try and get in the house. There's a team inside trying to keep them out of the house. And we turn all the lights out, and it's pitch black because it's winter, it's 10 o'clock at night. And the team outside, one of the kids, he said, you rush at the door at the back of the house and we'll try and get in. And we heard this. So as he rushed, all the lights are out inside, someone opened the door, everybody got hands him, threw him, and he was thrown from parent to parent to parent, and then opened up the front door, and he was foot out of the front door. And,
it was perfect.
And everybody just burst out laughing. It was hilarious.
We used to do quizzes, and we used to do round the house quiz. And there was various things like how quickly you could go up and down the stairs with a book on your head or whatever. But one of them, do you remember Katie Thompson? I can't believe this was so... I'm not going to be able to...
Yeah, after. One of them was the guess the number of pages in a book.
She said, we had this book.
We had this book.
You've got to guess, you come round, you've got to guess how many pages it is. Katie was very little, and she said, she kept looking, and we said, what's the matter, Katie? I don't understand what you have. You've got to guess the number of pages in the book. It's quite a thick book. So she said, why don't you just go to the last page and see what the number is? But we just laughed so much. It's very, very silly, and it was absolutely exhausting.
Because they put all the effort in to the 2 days, and the enjoyment was fabulous. Our own 2 daughters thought it was the best thing. They could not wait for Skeet to come round again. There is no other imaginable similar experience, because it is what it is. Skeet is not like Butlins. It's not like anything else.
The last evening we did a play, and we also had a dinner, and then
Yeah.
the boys made a speech and the girls made a speech, and
What we normally did on family skate weekends was in fact to get the children to put on a show, and the adults sat down in the audience and they were performed for us, and the adults put on a show, mostly written by Eric, those scripts.
we had a murder mystery weekend once,
Oh.
a Russian weekend, which was brilliant. That was Eric was absolutely brilliant at doing this. The interaction between the children and the adults was as it was because of the fun aspect. It was the children didn't feel that they were being asked to do anything that they felt was out of their comfort zone.
No.
And if possibly there was a child that thought that, another child will help them out of that comfort zone. We never ever thought of them and us, really.
There was plenty of time on the programme for free time. Yeah, we always had free time because the managers, the adults, wanted to have free time as well. Wanted to have a cup of coffee and sit down and have a chat for an hour, and the kids can therefore go off to the room, go off to the grounds, play football, tennis, do what they want, and there was plenty of that there.
The children were involved in the washing up, the setting of the table.
A friend of mine, Tony, was a great storyteller, and we turned all the lights off in the lounge. Everybody was sitting round on chairs. He was on a table, sitting on a chair with a white sheet round him. He was telling a ghost story, and we had all the effects of somebody walking through when it's very quiet, and that was, he'd done that from bouncing a ball in his bath to make the noise of somebody walking along. We rigged up a tea towel and flew it across the room, and that was a bat, you know, that type of thing. So he's standing there, and this is the truth, you can't make it up. He's there and he's got a candle lit, and he's got a white sheet. If you can imagine him, he's all in white. His face is white, he's coloured. He's got
holding his candle.
He's holding his candle, and 10 minutes after he's telling the story, he suddenly jumps up, falls off the chair, gets off the table, and we all said, "What's the matter, Tony?" He said, "Well, the hot wax went through the white sheet. It went through his tracksuit bottom."
And one of my younger daughter friends lives in, she came with us every single time and absolutely loved it. And she lives in America now. And I don't know why, I went through the albums of Skeet and I sent her some photos. And I said, "You got to look at these, and do you remember this, and do you remember that?" And I must have sent her about 20 photos. And 2 days ago, she sent me a text, and I've just got to read it out to you, and it just sums it up. Yeah. "Oh, Jenny, these are fantastic photos. Such a great time. Can't believe it was 1988. It really was one of my most favourite places, and everyone there was the best." That sums it up.
We were very, very, very lucky. Okay, the club itself was started in 1896 to help Jewish immigrants learn English, get a job, and assimilate into a thing. And we were lucky over time. A lot of Brady boys were successful, and therefore, through their success, they contributed, and the club, if anything, was very sound financially always because of the number of Jewish boys from the East End of London who did well. And then part of doing well was being a member of Brady and what you learned at Brady and what happened at Brady. And those people then provided the finance for Brady to continue.
Got to say one thing as well. Lol and I went for a walk around the East End, and I said to Lol, "Come on, let's go and have a look at Brady. Let's go and see what it's like." And we thought, "Oh, it's going to be, oh, I don't know." This is only in the last 6 months. So we walked up there, and I can feel the feeling in my stomach. And we walked in, there was this wonderful, wonderful guy at the desk who knew what we wanted because so many people had been before us. He said, just go wherever you want to go, thank you. So we're walking around and we're going in here and going here. Then we went into this hall, and then I suddenly said to Lowell, this is where we were engaged. And it's all different, but it's all very similar. It's all been renovated, but it was a wonderful place, wasn't it? It was wonderful.
It's still being used, which is good.
Yeah.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go